Good morning. I'm here today with a really special guest, and I'm really excited to share her with you. She does work that's near and dear to my heart, and you may have had experiences in your life that have led you to wonder, why does life always look like this? Why do I keep ending up in these situations? And my guest and new friend, Radavie, is going to give you insights as to why that is. Now there's a hot topic out there today, and it's a field I've been in for many years, and I really appreciate the wisdom and wealth of experience that Radavie brings to this conversation today around childhood trauma. And um, I'll just say I didn't identify with this myself, even though I was a practitioner in the field, because I had so many trapped memories and a distorted way of looking at who I was and where I'd come from. And that really gave me great insights as I really entered a path of healing myself as to how I had locked so much away. And so maybe this rings a bell or rings true for you. And so I'm going to introduce you to Radavie, and welcome, Radavie.
Good morning, Laura. It's so great to be here with you.
And you look so beautiful. The sun is kind of not shining where you are.
It's beginning to come on now, and what happens? It makes me shiny. And
Well,
where
that's
the
perfect.
sun makes me look sunny.
That's perfect. And where are you coming in from, Radavie? Where do you live
I'm
these
from
days?
Western North Carolina, which is near Asheville. I'm a little ways up from Asheville in a very nice country town. And I live in a neighborhood that every window that I look through, I see nature, trees. And it gives me such a really great feeling. Because nature, I think, is one of the missing ingredients. And that's what Spirit told me once. It's a missing ingredient in humans' life, humanity.
I can absolutely agree with you. Just over 15 years ago, we made a decision to move out of the city. And, because I felt very restless living in the city. I'm a city girl, but I have connections to the country. And our kids were really mad at us. That was, they were 9 and 10, and we were moving them away from the mall and all of that stuff that goes on. And, a few months after we were out there, they said, "Mom, this was the best thing you could have done for us. We love this." And my husband said years later, he says, "I don't know if you'd have made it living in the city, because I needed that as not escape, but I just needed more calm." And that's what I see with so many people today, that they live with so much, so many things pulling on them, that they're not centered, they're not grounded, and living in nature. We just in this last year sold that property and moved even farther away.
Wow.
I'm living in a forest, close to a small village, and those places are still available. I'm in Canada.
Yeah. I remember there was a time in my life some years ago where I loved the country, yet I loved the idea of city. And I thought, if I can just live smack in between those two, because somewhere in me I hadn't gotten quite settled in my sense of peace or inner peace.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so I noticed that finally, there was no options.
Yes.
Country
Yeah.
was perfect. As a matter of fact, that came up to me when I was visiting my sister in Canada. And I loved Toronto, and she lived more out into Markham. And I
Mm.
remember thinking about that and said, oh, I really like Toronto, but now my
You're good.
choice is
You're good.
better.
Yeah. Um, well, um, teaching people to connect to their bodies as a therapist is what I did for the last decade. And we would take them into our home was a retreat center outside of the city, and many people would fly in from big cities, and it was kind of funny. They thought it was really interesting how this space that we had created, we had a very spacious home, and kind of like in a little place like Bug Tussle, I called it. And how they would go through this process of settling down, that there were, the distractions. It was all about self healing and letting go of how all of that outside world. And I would say leave the outside world outside. This time is for you. And as we got into 12 days of settling in, um, most of the time they were sleeping because they didn't even allow themselves to sleep. And I recognize I'm a reforming non-sleeper.
You know,
Important, that is. I,
right. That reminds me of when I do retreats for clients. There's one at a time, and in the 4 days, and I see them twice a day, and there are strong restrictions. No TV,
yeah,
no cell phone,
yep.
nothing. And it
No
and
computer. Yeah.
yep. And the only thing I want you to bring is a notebook. And the
Mhm.
same thing would happen, Lauren. After one session, in the middle of the day, they will go back. Everyone tells me they fall asleep
Yeah.
because the body is healing.
Yeah. I actually thought I was being too strict because for 12 days I would let them have their phones on off times, but the phones were not allowed in the classroom. And so it was kind of, I felt that as I loosened up those non-negotiables, there was conflict. There would be conflict because I would have a group of them, and it was like kind of, I called them the mutinies, because they'd, oh, I want to use my phone. Oh, who is she? She's bossing me around. All the child behavior. My husband used to say when everybody was arriving, the kids are all coming home. Because that it was so funny. I should have videoed it, because as they would come in and they'd bring their baby blankets, and their suitcase, and they'd come in, and yeah, it was, so they bring all the
It's
stuff all the stuff they hadn't unpacked for their whole life. And
it's
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
no. That's beautiful because actually, to me, because of my service, unconsciously they're opening to the place where it started, their
Yeah,
childhood stuff that they have moved away from. So
right.
the unconscious knew exactly what was needed. It's really perfect.
It's a perfect segue into introducing your topic today. And I just want to say hello to everyone who's joining us live. We have quite a few people on live. I see Mike Chavez is here from Las Vegas, and there's others. We're live streaming to several different platforms. I can't see everyone, but our topic today is actually, I'm going to just turn it over to Radavie, who's joining us from North Carolina and is an expert in her field. So, who is it that you work with, Radavie?
That's a really good question because the people who come to me is because they're really ready to find there's something going on, and and they really don't know. They quite can't get it. They can't get what it is. So it's, to me, the first thing is it's people who are ready to really open and to look deeper within themselves and step out of their beliefs. We get so trapped in our beliefs. So my website, I said I serve spirit and awaken from the wounded child. So we have to get back to basic. We have to get back to the conditioning and the beginning of what happened that took us out, that covered over our innocence, because the innocence isn't gone. The innocence is just covered over, and we're living from this distorted beliefs.
Oh, I didn't mean to do that. Oh, there we go. I'm fooling around behind the scenes here. What you just said is really powerful, and if I can just elaborate on that too, is I often hear statements of their innocence is stolen, and so here's my position with this, because this is such a sensitive issue, and I believe all of us carry that. I'll say trauma because we identify with it, but it's the conditioning from our childhood. And we need solutions. We need solutions to open it up, to release that behavior. And how we feel about it is ends up being how we act out about it. So
Absolutely.
people need tools. And that's, I think, part of what's lacking. There's a lot of discussion around childhood trauma, but what are some of the tools that people can use that you would say, go and do this, work on this? Because this is deep work. People like the concept of the deep work, but when they get there, it's kind of like, oh, that's boring.
Life is really simple.
Right.
And the mind gets it so complicated. I have to do this, and if I don't do this, I'm not going to get it. But first of all, the simple is to sit and just move 12 inches down from here to the heart. And it's pretty easy. And what we can do is to breathe, because the more we breathe, I mean, I want people to practice that and see it's right. And the more we breathe, the more the body becomes relaxed. And the more the mind, I think, becomes more relaxed if we are focusing on wanting to go inside and sit within our hearts. So breathing and is really the first step, and saying, I want to know, because the answers are inside the questions. Those questions we want to know are here inside. And if we stop, we're going to get an answer.
Right.
Yes. And, another method that I would use is to say, use your non-dominant hand. When you're in a calm space, get a sheet of paper. What is it? Maybe what is it you want to know about you? And use your non-dominant hand and start to write. It doesn't have to make sense to. It will not make sense. Hopefully, it will not make sense to the mind until you're finished.
That is so excellent. So can you expand on that for those who are watching? And I just want to acknowledge how many people we have joining us live from several different platforms today. That in itself shows that this is a topic that is valuable, and the service you provide is of great interest. So using the non-dominant hand, because your dominant hand is, I'll just let you take over there.
No, the dominant hand is connected to your thoughts and your beliefs. So you're stepping out of that room into an uncharted territory. And you are going to find that things will come to you that you never thought would come, that you never thought was there. It's a very revealing, and to me, I find that is a very sacred journey that we take within ourselves, because life, I think, is meant to be a holy life. And so much distractions and the conditioning in the early years has taken us out of that place of being. When we see things, and there's a connection. And this brings me to a little story that I have about the innocence. I walked into a restaurant one day, and soon after, a pregnant mother came in and with her little son and sat next to me. And I love children, because when I speak to their essence, I just, based on all my experiences of childhood stuff. And so I'm talking with them, and I said, So mommy's going to have, what would you like, a brother or a sister? Mommy's going to have, you a little baby. And he said to me, I have a brother. And his mother kindly said to me, he's referring to the dog. Now, I really want people to think about, don't let your mind says, how could he, the innocence at seeing everything as one was expressing itself. And I was just taken with that. And I wanted to connect with that child more at
Mm.
some other time. Where does she live? Yes, and all of that. Because I wanted to hold that space for that feeling that he was having, that imagination that he was having. And to him, it wasn't an imagination, it was real. There was a oneness between he and this consciousness that is in a dog.
Yeah.
And yes, and we haven't lost it.
Yeah. I believe that I didn't have dogs when I was a child. I wasn't allowed to have a puppy. But my kids would say, well, if dad wasn't there, you'd be the crazy dog lady. And I would, because my experience of in these last 15 years having little dogs and caring for them. And I believe that part of animals' roles in this world is to teach us to be more humane, more human, because they are unconditional love. And the when I was not doing well physically, they seemed to just know. And my husband, a man of the land, he is connected to animals, and he would bring that awareness forward, because the puppies is they would just be really clingy with me, and it was soothing and it was calming, and I would
Beautiful.
give them love when I wasn't giving myself love. Yeah, and so I
Yeah.
truly believe that. That's a beautiful story, Radavie.
And I was touched by it to
Mhm.
actually have that experience and not read it from a book. So everything I'm talking about today, I'm going to share is coming from my own personal
Mhm.
experiences. Right?
Mhm. Mhm.
You know,
What your discussion around people, coming to be with you and not having the phone and that. And if I can just share, my journey started when I went on my first 10-day silent retreat. And I was in the midst of a crazy busy career in real estate, and so much was going on, and my body was screaming for help, and I was going in so many directions. And 10 days, no meat, no sugar, no coffee, no phone, no and no talking a lot of the time. All of the things that, they were all things that kept me that's that's outside of myself. And at the end of those 10 days, when I went to my car, I got in and then I got back out right away, because I thought this was somebody driving my car, because the seat was not comfortable for the form that was now getting in it. And I was astounded. And in that moment, it's like, I don't believe I've ever been in my body. So,
oh,
and that day, I just enjoyed that day. I had a several hour drive. I probably shouldn't have been driving, because I was so grounded, and it's like everything was moving so slow. But I marveled at that feeling of, wow. And for the next several weeks, my kids would say, why are you talking like that? Like, everything's going to be okay. But what was happening in my heart was, I have to figure out how to keep this feeling, because every
oh,
day I could feel it going away a little bit. And that's how I ended up being on this path of showing people how to do it, and today showing that to entrepreneurs. And that's what you do. Is I just love that in our conversations. And just welcome to everyone coming on. I'm with Radavie Riom, who's um, an expert in her field of taking people on the journey to discover that little boy or little girl that
Yeah.
maybe got left behind and
Yeah.
is dealing with issues today in their everyday life. And you're maybe suspicious to what went on earlier in my life, that I do all of these things or I have all of these experiences, and everything else doesn't seem that I do doesn't seem to give me the solutions. And Radavie works with people at that level.
And when you talked about discovering the little girl or the little boy, that's exactly what happens.
Mhm.
Because clients will come to me, and I have the ability to really listen, but at the same time, I'm looking under the hood. There's something else showing me, and so my intuition and empathy really goes very well, and I want to say too that when I see a client, the name Radavie relates to the body and to the person, but the essence in me, which is the divine, is what steps forward. And so it's a very sacred mission for me with my clients. And commonly, very commonly, we'll find a place inside of that client. They will help me and take me down into the root, and they will find a lot more than they realize that's there. And a place that the child would go when it's unhappy, and we go into that place and discover this piece of them that had disconnected from the rest of their body, and that is the part that was holding the pain and the discomfort
Mhm.
with in them. And so when we do the soul retrieval, I'm able to hear the child too, and they tell me things. But when the adult retrieves that child in their heart, I want to be sure that they can have a conversation with that child. It's a very beautiful, beautiful experience. And I
Mhm.
remember a woman. Oh, I said, tell me something from the three things that you're grateful for from the session. And the first thing is she couldn't get over how meaningful it was for her to have found her child. She was so ecstatic from her heart. There was no mindset. The body, the feeling was very, very grateful. And so it's a missing part of ourself, a disconnected piece that we connect with. And so we become more whole. And many times it's the essence that's locked in that pain.
Well, we have so many distractions around us these days. One of my mentors calls it digital dementia, digital distraction. Can you sit to have a meal without having that on you? We were at a wellness spa that's close to us. We go often. They have healing waters. It's a very unique location, and families come to be in the pool. There was a family of mom and dad and three kids, and they had covers for their phones so they wouldn't get wet, and both parents were on their phones in the water, and the kids were acting out around them. And after an hour, the dad left with the kids wherever, because it's close to a hotel too. It's in a hotel, so they probably went back to their room. And we were there for just about 3 hours. The mom was still on her phone watching movies or whatever she's doing. So 3 hours of being in a wellness pool, heated healing waters, and the whole time she's not there, vacant. Uh, um, I that in itself is something for that we can use as tools to switch up our connection with others, because how we feel connected to others comes from a place of connection in self. And what you said earlier about holy days, I always correct people when they say I'm going on vacation, because why are you vacating? Don't vacate, make it a holiday, a holy
A
day.
holy day. That's right, and that's right, and and all of this was coming from my own experiences of how distracted we all are from our conditioning because we're believing everything we hear as truth,
Mhm.
everything we hear about ourselves,
Yeah.
everything we hear about. For instance, I didn't have this experience, but I know there's a lot of people have this experience, prejudice towards other colors or other people, and they grow up feeling that way. So it leaves a harshness and a
Yeah.
hardness and a major separation between others, and also a separation from themselves.
Mhm.
This is the thing,
The judge.
separation from that essence, and
Mhm.
really, really holding that place because it's a place that I arrived not knowing how, because as a child I didn't smile. I was very sad and withdrawn. And now the child has come out, and I will see the beauty of a flower or my plant in the house when I'm watering. I'll just touch it or kiss it, or
Yeah.
I have a relationship with life. That's
Right.
what it is. And
Right.
we're here to have a relationship with life because we as humans have the desire to connect. Connection is most important. And so it's not just about connection with another, but how do we connect with life? What is life?
Mhm.
Everything that's around us.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm just really enjoying listening to everything that you're saying, because that's it's what I believe, and how I live also, because uh, we we have these experiences in life that take us away from those, from ourself, and we are right exactly where we're supposed to be because of that journey, and that disconnection or distraction is what keeps us, prevents us. And what you said about what we hear growing up, well, then the things about, it's about self, it turns into self-judgment,
Oh,
because we hear it
absolutely.
long enough. And then later on in life as adults, that self-judgment is like, oh, I need to get a house like the neighbors, a better car than my friend, and just continuing, and that racks up all of the bills, and then the stress, and then the patterns with all of that. We grow up feeling judged, so we act out. And I hear what you say about, judging others on the color of their skin. And um, that's intrigued me from very early in life too. I have many races in my skin. My skin looks the way that it is, but I have many dark races in me, and
Me too.
it's kind of interesting. So I've experienced judgment on the color of my skin from
Hmm.
different races, because they grew up feeling judged. I see it now. I was so surprised by those experiences, but in the beginning, and now I see that it's how they've felt judged, and they continue to judge.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's
Absolutely.
yeah, we are all human. We should have been called human doers, because we're not really good at the being part.
Yeah.
That's what
Yeah.
our
And
soul work is, right?
right. But and people may not see it this way, but for me, where I am today, I see that there's a beauty about the evolution from open to be open to say, I want to see why do I feel such judgment towards someone or something, and to see what is it, to understand that when we're feeling badly about something outside, we must look inside first.
Yeah.
Because unless we have a very dark place of our own ideas about ourselves, we wouldn't see the world in that way. It's a reflection. The way in which we see things on the outside is a reflection of where we are.
Yeah. 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 Just as you're talking, I'm thinking about, and this might just be a throwback, but I grew up with Dolly Parton singing A Coat of Many Colors. And that is us, our tapestry in the world today. We're such a potpourri of blends of people. I recently started a journey of discovering my heritage because of the questions I have through DNA, and I've been so delighted for myself. Like it confirms all of these things that were part of the judgments that I felt growing up, and it's been so freeing. So understanding where I come from, and this is for those watching too, when you understand where you've come from, then it opens you to move forward in new directions with, you know, clear mind, clear heart, good health in your body. Mm,
Gives you an option. You know, the more information, it gives us opportunity for options.
right,
Yeah.
right. So how can people get a hold of you, Radavie? Where do they find you? If you talk about that a little bit. What I'd like to say to the audience that's joining us right now is all of the links to connect with Radavie, we'll place them in the comments below the interview, whatever platform you're joining us from. You'll find that connection there.
Um,
And you have a website, but you also have a special offer for people.
yeah. I offer people a 20-minute complimentary discomfort conversation. And um, I have had clients tell me that after that complimentary, they would go into a healing because what I offer to my clients on a session hasn't gone away. It's the same that I offer in that 20 minutes. And because of my intuition and my empathy, I can quickly really, really feel things in a very short time. So I would really love people to take that, especially these times that we're going through. I know that everybody are feeling more and more um, discomfort within themselves because it's bringing up a lot of old issues. Unknown to them, that's what it is. It's not about the pandemic, but the pandemic has been like a little, has hit that little thing inside that awakened their concerns.
Right.
And yes,
Um, I find it interesting. You and I, our life didn't change that day that the world went into this lockdown because we already live in retreats, right?
that's right. That's a very good way of putting it.
Yeah.
And I have, because I have such a depth of looking at things in a very deep respective way, that I really see there are two different ways that things happen. We see the value to it, and so we see the despair of it. So that's a contrast. Life is like a contrast. And we can choose to look at the despair, or we can say, there's something else happening for our benefit. Because consciousness never gives us something to make us suffer. All of us are here to want peace and happiness.
Right.
And it's a chance to say, I am not at peace right now, and I'm not happy, and I'm very upset. Reach out for someone who can offer you.
Well, this is it. Again, that goes back to that all the external conditioning and feeling like we have no control over what's going on. So coming back home to your body gives you that control over this space here. you do have control over your thoughts, your actions, and that switch in the thinking, the mind. We talked about mindset earlier, before the call. Is I often say mindset doesn't work unless you put it into action. If when you have that action, that's when things start shifting. But to have that guidance, first of all, that awareness, so being centered in self. So Radavie, we're going to post that link for everyone. And I want to thank everyone for coming on live with us. And what would you like to say to people in closing?
I want to say that when we are in constant mental struggle or mental thinking, I mean, we can be thinking, but connecting with our hearts. But when we're constantly in our beliefs that keeps us in a distortion. We're not fully in our bodies. We're in our mind. And what we need to do is to come down into our heart space. If I could do it, everyone can do it, because I've gone through my own despair. And that's why I reach out to people in the way that I do, because I know the possibility of freedom. And that's what I want to offer to people.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is how these businesses are created, and how we become experts is from having that journey. So your journey that you've been on, you've sat front row to many case studies, and so you've
Yes, lot.
understand how to guide them through. So
Right.
I just want to say to everyone watching that connect with Radavie, and connect with yourself. Actually, use your breath, use your let go of the distractions. And as challenging that might be, annoying to even hear that, that's a sign. Look at that, because your inner guidance is showing you the way. There's a reason why you're hearing these words right now, and that you've joined us. Radavie is an expert at guiding people back um, to their roots, to the truth of who they are. So we'll make sure that you get the link. Thank you so much for your wisdom and your sharing, and your kind heart, the bright light that you bring to the world. Thank you, Radavie.
Thank you so much, Laura, for having me here. And I offer blessings and love to all who listen to this, because I want to remind them that there's no difference between any of us. We in the in the physical way we look different, but there is this essence, going back to that again, that lives within all of us. Let's go find it together.
Beautiful. Thanks so much.
Bye now.